Rory McIlroy held the PGA Tour together when everything was falling apart. He stood in front of cameras, sat on the policy board, and told the world this tour was worth saving. 3 years later, he is at odds with the man running it. The words being thrown around now are not about tournaments or schedules. Secret talks, outside money, a bypass around the CEO. That is what people are whispering. Whether any of it is true and how deep it goes is what we are here to find out. McIlroy looked at Brian Rolapp's proposed 2-track model and called the lower tier glorified Corn Ferry events. He said that to reporters. On the record, knowing exactly who would hear it. Then he said something worse. He told the world he has zero influence on the decisions Rolapp makes. The player who built the resistance, who kept the biggest names from walking, now says his voice does not count in the room where it matters. Rolapp had to answer publicly. The CEO of a billion-dollar operation, forced to respond to a golfer's criticism like a politician handling a debate attack. That is not a disagreement between colleagues. That is a crack showing through the paint, and every player in that locker room can see it. Here is what we know. McIlroy is unhappy. McIlroy is speaking out, and there are questions forming about where his loyalties sit now and who he might be talking to outside the tour's walls. What we do not know yet is the full picture. Who is on the other side of those conversations? What is being discussed? What McIlroy is trying to build if this tour stops listening to him? That is coming. Every piece. I think McIlroy is right to push back, and the tour loses its identity if this 2-track model goes through. Tell me if you agree. Hit subscribe if you want the full story as it unfolds. He says he has no seat at the table. The real question is whether he is building his own. The timing tells you everything. McIlroy did not make those comments on a random Tuesday. He made them 1 week before Rolapp was scheduled to stand in front of the tour's membership and lay out the new schedule. 7 days. Enough time for every reporter to run the story. Enough time for every player in the locker room to read it. Enough time for Rolapp to walk into that meeting knowing his biggest star had just publicly rejected the plan. Here is what the 2-track model actually does. It splits the schedule into 2 tiers. The top gets the elevated events, the big money, the broadcast slots. The bottom gets the rest. And the bottom is where most of the tour lives. Players ranked 50 through 150. The guys grinding for cards. The guys who built their entire lives around the promise that if they are good enough, they belong. McIlroy called it what it is, a minor league. Wearing the PGA Tour name. Consider what that label does to a player sitting at number 80 in the world. He spent 10 years climbing. Monday qualifiers web.com. Grinds. Sleepless nights in motel rooms outside municipal courses, trying to earn a spot that his grandfather could only dream about. Now, someone in a boardroom tells him his events are the bottom tier, the feeder circuit, the developmental wing of a product he helped build. That is not a schedule change. That is a demotion handed to men who earned their place with a wedge in their hand and a scorecard that proved it. McIlroy sat on the policy board in 2023. He was in the room. He had a vote. He does not anymore. That is not a complaint from a player who lost a tournament. That is a former board member saying the governance structure no longer includes the people who built the product. Rolapp did not just issue a statement. He picked up the phone. He spoke with McIlroy directly after the public swipe. Think about what that means. The CEO had to call the player, not the other way around. Rolapp went to McIlroy. In any other business, that is a sign the boss knows he overplayed his hand. That call did not settle anything. Because what McIlroy is fighting is bigger than one schedule change, and the people who can actually stop it are not sitting in the tour's offices. To understand who those people are, you have to look at what happened to the tour's structure. Not the golf, the money. The PGA Tour does not run like a tour anymore. It runs like a company, a for-profit company called PGA Tour Enterprises, and companies answer to the people who put money in. Those people have a name, the Strategic Sports Group, a collection of billionaire sports owners. Arthur Blank, who owns the Atlanta Falcons, is one of them. These are not golf people. They are business people who wrote enormous checks, and in return, they got a seat at the table where every major decision is now made. The kind of seat that comes with expectations, with timelines, with a demand for returns that have nothing to do with birdies or bogeys. Here is the part most fans do not see. The SSG investment was not a gift. It was a transaction, capital in exchange for equity influence. The tour needed liquidity after the LIV war drained resources. The SSG provided it. But money always comes with conditions: quarterly targets, growth metrics. A path to profitability that looks more like a tech startup than a 100-year-old sporting institution. The players did not vote on this. They did not negotiate the terms. They woke up one morning and learned that the tour they played on now had shareholders. And shareholders do not care about the romance of a Sunday back nine. They care about the number on the bottom line. Before that money arrived, the players had a voice. The policy board existed. McIlroy sat on it. After that money arrived, the board got bigger. The investors got chairs. The players' chairs got smaller. McIlroy is not on that board anymore. He said it himself. He has no influence on the decisions Rolapp makes. The two-track model was not designed by golfers who wanted to protect the game. It was designed to create a premium product, a cleaner, more exclusive top tier that is easier to sell to broadcasters and sponsors. The bottom tier exists to feed the top. That is not a sports structure. That is a business funnel. Those checks came with expectations, and the people who wrote them are not going to sit quietly while their investment loses value. So when McIlroy calls the lower tier a minor league, he is not just complaining about a schedule. He is saying the tour has stopped being a competition and started being a product. The people making those decisions are not answering to the players anymore. They are answering to the people who signed the checks. And that is exactly where McIlroy's next move becomes dangerous. Dangerous because McIlroy is not just a golfer with a loud voice. He is a business. TMRW Sports. That is the company he built with Tiger Woods. It created TGL, the indoor golf league backed by private equity. It has its own investors, its own broadcast deals, its own revenue streams. None of that answers to Brian Rolapp. None of it sits inside PGA Tour Enterprises. Rolapp cannot touch it. Rolapp cannot threaten it. Rolapp cannot use it as leverage. It belongs to McIlroy, and it is already working. Think about what that means for a moment. The tour's biggest star, the man who won the Masters in April, has a financial ecosystem that exists completely outside the tour's control. He does not need the tour's permission to build. He does not need Rolapp's approval to grow. He has his own table, his own chairs, his own guests. And every month that ecosystem grows, the tour's grip on him gets a little looser. TGL is not a hobby project. It has broadcast partners. It has team ownership groups worth hundreds of millions. It has a format designed for prime-time television, not for a Tuesday afternoon golf audience. McIlroy and Woods built something that competes for the same eyeballs the PGA Tour needs. And they built it without asking Rolapp for permission, without sitting in a boardroom at PGA Tour Enterprises, without running the concept past the Strategic Sports Group. They built it because they could. And the fact that they could is the most dangerous message McIlroy has sent to the tour's leadership. It says, very clearly, that the best players in the world do not need the PGA Tour to create value. They can create it themselves. And that message travels. It does not stay with McIlroy. Every player ranked in the top 30 hears it. Every player with a social media following and a brand deal and a management team hears it. The old model said the tour made you. The new model says you can make yourself. And once enough players believe the second version, the tour's leverage disappears. Not in a press conference, not in a dramatic exit. Just slowly, quietly, one contract negotiation at a time, until the tour realizes it is negotiating from a position it no longer holds. McIlroy has talked publicly about his dream scenario for professional golf. A global tour. A different structure. He has not announced a plan. He has not filed paperwork. He has not made a formal move, but he has said the words. And when the best golfer in the world talks about building something new, the people who invested in the current structure start paying attention. The Strategic Sports Group did not write those checks to watch the tour's best player build a competitor. They invested in a product. If the product's biggest star is publicly questioning the product, that is a problem. Not for Rolapp, for them. McIlroy does not need to overthrow anyone. He just needs to make the people with the money nervous enough to do it for him. Making them nervous is one thing. Giving them a reason to act is another. And McIlroy has been building that reason in public, one interview at a time. Every time he speaks, the SSG hears it. Every time he calls the two-track model a minor league, Every time he says he has no influence, every time he talks about a dream scenario for a different kind of tour, the investors hear it. They read the same headlines the fans read. They see the same coverage. They watch the same press conferences. This is not a secret meeting in a back room. This is louder than that. McIlroy's bypass is public. It is every quote, every interview, every pointed answer in a post-round press conference. He is not whispering to investors. He is speaking to the entire world, knowing the investors are listening. Because here is what the investors care about. They care about the value of their investment. And the value of the PGA Tour is not in its offices. It is not in its broadcast contracts. It is in the players, the stars, the names that sell tickets and drive ratings. If McIlroy walks, others follow. If the stars walk, the product collapses. If the product collapses, the SSG's investment loses value. Rolapp recently shut down all conversation about a merger with LIV Golf. He said there are no talks, no conversations. He closed that door firmly. Closing the door on an outside competitor is one thing. Closing the door on your own players is another. You cannot lock out the people who make your product worth watching. Here is the financial reality that makes this so dangerous for Rolapp. The SSG's investment is tied to the tour's valuation. That valuation is tied to the quality of the product. The quality of the product is tied to the players. Remove the players, and the valuation drops. Remove the top 20 players, and the valuation does not just drop, it collapses. Broadcast deals get renegotiated downward. Sponsorship contracts get reviewed. The entire financial model that Rolapp was hired to build starts to crack at the foundation. McIlroy knows this. He does not need to say it out loud. He just needs to let the possibility exist. The possibility is the weapon. No secret deal is needed when the investors can already see the risk. One bad quarter, one star walking away, and the money finds a new direction. A public campaign only works if the man running the tour cannot fight back. And right now, Rolapp has nowhere to turn. He was hired to modernize the tour, to make it financially sustainable, to compete with the NFL, the NBA, the Premier League for attention and revenue. He is not wrong that the tour needed to evolve. The old model was not going to survive in a world where LIV Golf could write 9-figure checks to pull players away. Evolution and dismantling are not the same thing. The two-track model does not modernize the tour. It creates a closed shop. A franchise model. Access controlled by ownership, not earned through performance. That is how the NFL works. That is how the NBA works. That is not how golf has ever worked. The PGA Tour's identity was built on one idea. If you are good enough, you belong. You qualify. You earn your card. You grind through Monday qualifiers and Corn Ferry events and you make it. That is the story. That is what made this tour different from every other closed league in sports. That is what made a kid from Northern Ireland with a hand-me-down set of clubs believe he could stand on the same tee box as the legends he grew up watching. Look at what happened when other sports tried to close their doors. European soccer's Super League attempt in 2021. 12 of the biggest clubs tried to break away and form a closed competition. No promotion, no relegation, just guaranteed revenue for the founding members. The backlash was immediate. Fans revolted. Governments threatened legislation. Within 48 hours, the English clubs pulled out. The project collapsed. The lesson was clear. You cannot take a sport built on open competition and turn it into a private members club without the people who love it burning it down. Golf is no different. The fans who fill the galleries at the US Open, who stay up until 2 in the morning to watch the Masters final round, who learn the game on a municipal course with a bucket of range balls, they did not sign up for a franchise model. They signed up for a meritocracy. And those fans are not silent anymore. They post, they comment, they share every quote, every press conference clip, every boardroom leak that finds its way onto social media. The PGA Tour used to control its narrative through broadcast partners and press releases. That control is gone. Every fan with a phone is a journalist now. Every tweet is a headline. And when McIlroy speaks, millions of those fans amplify his words before Rolapp's communications team can even draft a response. The court of public opinion is no longer a side conversation. It is the main event. And McIlroy knows how to play it better than anyone in that boardroom. McIlroy knows this. That is why he fights. Not for a bigger paycheck, not for a better schedule, For the structure that made him, made Tiger, made every champion who came through qualifying. Rolapp cannot fight McIlroy publicly without losing the locker room. Every player watched what happened. They saw their best golfer tell the CEO the plan was wrong. They saw the CEO call him to make peace. If Rolapp doubles down now, he loses the players. If he backs down, he loses the investors. He is caught between the two groups that keep him in his job. Every exit is blocked, and the man in the corner is the one who built the walls. The next move belongs to someone else entirely, and that is the full picture. The secret talks the headlines whisper about are not secret at all. They are every public word McIlroy has spoken since the two-track model was announced. The outside investors are not shadowy figures in a back room. They are the strategic sports group, the billionaires who funded the tour's for-profit future. The bypass is not a conspiracy, it is a strategy. McIlroy is using his public voice, his own business network through TMRW Sports, and the financial pressure of the SSG to force a change in direction. He is going around Rolapp by going directly to the people who control Rolapp's budget. The who is McIlroy, armed with his own empire and the loudest voice in the game. The which is the two-track model, the specific policy that triggered this fight. The why is simple. The tour is losing its identity, replacing merit with access, locking out the players who built it. The how is the part nobody expected, not a whispered deal, not a back-channel negotiation. A public campaign aimed directly at the people who signed the checks, designed to make them choose between the CEO and the stars. If the two-track model survives, the tour becomes a closed franchise. The top tier locks in its names. The bottom tier becomes a developmental circuit. The middle class of professional golf, the players ranked 50 through 150, get squeezed out. They lose their path. The meritocracy that defined this sport for 100 years gets replaced by a boardroom decision. And once that door closes, it does not open again. No amount of money buys back a tradition you let die. If McIlroy's pressure works, the model changes. The investors push Rolapp to adjust. The schedule keeps its depth. The qualifying path stays alive. The game stays open. A kid with a hand-me-down set of clubs still has a road to the biggest stage in golf. That is what McIlroy is fighting for. Not a bigger paycheck, not a better schedule. The idea that the best golfers in the world should earn their spot, not be assigned one. McIlroy could have taken the LIV money 3 years ago. He could have walked away. He stayed because he believed in this tour. He sat on the policy board. He argued in meetings. He stood in front of cameras and told the world this institution was worth protecting. Now the institution is being reshaped by people who never hit a driver off a tee box on a Sunday morning with their legacy on the line. People who look at a golf course and see a revenue stream, not a cathedral. The next few months will decide what the PGA Tour becomes for the next generation. Rolapp has a board meeting coming. The SSG will want updates, projections, a clear path to the returns they were promised. McIlroy will keep playing, keep winning, keep answering questions in press conferences with the same pointed precision he used to call the two-track model a minor league. Every answer is a message. Every message is pressure, and the men in the boardroom will have to decide whether the tour they invested in is worth more with its soul intact or with its schedule optimized. Watch the next 3 events on the schedule. Watch who shows up. Watch who skips. Watch what McIlroy says in his Thursday press conference versus what he says after the final putt drops on Sunday. Watch whether Rolapp appears alongside the players or whether he stays in the boardroom. Those small signals will tell you which way the wind is blowing before any official announcement ever lands. The players talk to each other, they always have, and when enough of them start asking the same question in the same locker room, the answer writes itself. There is no version of this story where everyone walks away happy. Rolapp cannot keep his job if the players revolt. The SSG cannot protect their investment if the product loses its best talent. McIlroy cannot build his legacy on a tour that no longer recognizes itself. The only question is who blinks first. And right now, the man with the most leverage is not the one sitting in the CEO's office. It is the one holding a golf club, standing on the first tee, knowing that the entire structure bends around him, whether the boardroom likes it or not. He stayed to protect the PGA Tour. Now he is protecting it from the people running it. That is the story. That is what changed. Whether it ends with a new structure or a broken one depends on what happens in the next few months, in boardrooms that no camera will ever see. McIlroy made his move. Rolapp is cornered, the investors are watching, and the game they all claim to love is sitting in the middle, waiting to find out who actually has its best interests at heart.